I'll do a, you know when you go to the cinema, they have these trailers for what's coming up next, yeah? Just a trailer that there's going to be at least 3 more transfer seminars in January. I think it's the last 2 Wednesdays in January we've got lined up. So this is becoming quite a regular, enjoyable event. So, are you ready? Yeah. I'm going to sit here because I'm an old man and I don't hear clearly, but can you pretend that I'm sitting at the back and that you're speaking for me to understand at the very, very back?
The screen on every corner of this room.
I don't know what's happening, but I'm trying to explain. First of all, hello.
Just enable it.
Just enable it.
But it doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong.
Oh, it's frozen.
Yeah, it's freezing. Yeah.
Shall I go down and get IT? You can't save it?
Let me check.
Or go up and say, search?
There's a dialogue box open.
Try to close it.
Starts with everything. Is it okay now? Ah, great.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am so glad to speak about my topic, which is about teaching literature using the critical thinking approach and the communicating language approach. In my today presentation, I'm going to cover all those points. They seem very long, but hopefully I'm going to cover them all. So the first point, I'm going to start with the introduction, where I'm going to speak about 3 points, mainly teaching literature, and the second one is L1 and L2 context, and teaching English as a foreign language there in Algeria. So let me first speak about the teaching literature. Teaching literature, as Martin Bidi points out in his article, Introduction to Teaching Literature, Changing Cultures in 1979, he points out that teaching literature makes the students mindful about the tension and also the contradiction about approaching other cultures. Also, he points out that teaching literature helps the students to improve their language proficiency and also help them to go further into other cultures. However, he was a bit surprised that there is no actual writing about pedagogy and also the construction of language in classical, mainly the interaction between students, and teacher-students. In the same manner, Camilla Mobin also said that teaching culture is through modules that require more readings. So here we can conclude that teaching literature helps the students to improve their way of thinking and also to improve their way of approaching other cultures. So let me now move to the L1 and L2 context. Let me first draw your attention that the contribution of the study lies in L2 context, where people their English is not the first language. So let me first speak about L1 context. L1 context, people whom their English their first language, so they are studying literature, just to help them to appreciate their literary background, also know their history about those writing and so on. But in L2 context, students like me and you, we are studying literature just to improve our language proficiency and also to identify the gaps that will be improved later. So now let me move to the TFL there in Algeria. TFL there in Algeria is classified as 4 aspects. The first one is persistence. In Algeria we have 2 persistence. The first one to the first language, which is Arabic, and the second one to the persistent to our first language. Some of them they are Arabic, some of them they are Berber, Kabylian, Benuzab, and also people like this. The second one is persistence to our first foreign language, which is here is French. people, they still see English there in Algeria is not a good language. So they are going always to the French, and also it seems much easier than this because to the background and also to the political boundaries. So now let me speak about education there, teaching English education there. In Algeria, as a Francophone country and belong to the Francophone movement, they believe, that teaching English there is still a bit behind to the English, because we still think that the French implementation is still routine there in Algeria. So this is the education, and also they refer to the students. The students there, they don't show motivation in order to study such language. This language for them is new, so they don't have to do anything with it. So it has relation with the students. Moving to the third point, which is about Algerian authority. As a country there in Algeria, North Africa, we still using French as a corresponding language there. Our foreign minister affair there, they still using French. The French there is still a routine there in Algeria. It's not because we want it, but there are some hidden policy like Francophone parties there. They want the French still dominating there in Algeria. Speaking there about like very sensitive zones there in Algeria, Erziye, Skikda, also Hassim Messouri, those zones there in Algeria are very important. However, the French is still existing, like some big companies in the world, like British Petroleum, Hadafa, and also Weatherford, and Honeypot, and those big companies that are still French there in Algeria. And if you know the process of drilling there, they have to do this process in French, which led some companies to fly away from Algeria, so they don't want to invest there in Algeria. So this is one of the common things. Moving now to the final one, which is about academia there. In 2012, UNESCO has published one of the terrifying articles there in Algeria. They said that the publication in academia there in French language is more higher than the English one. They estimate the number among 10 years, during the last 10 years, is going to be less than 500 articles. Meanwhile, more than 10,000 articles in French. So here's the problem about TFL there in Algeria. So now let me move to the rationale. The rationale is going to be divided into two aspects. The first one is going to be personally, and the second one is going to be pedagogically. So speaking about personally, my interest in teaching literature developed while I was master's student there, because I was part of this curriculum there, so I know everything. The class atmosphere was totally bored. There are students that are not motivated to study. Sometimes they are just come for the grades, for the certificates. And also the selection of the novel was the main important one. Imagine in 2017, you are studying there in Algerian context. You are studying Jane Austen, and you have to speak about the context which belongs to the 17th century, where students, they can't speak about such things because the things that are in the world are burning, people that want to speak, people that want to bring their things, their own experience, their own speech in the classroom. So the selection of the novels there were very disappointing from students. Here I'm speaking about master classes, I'm not speaking about the undergraduate classes. So now let me move to pedagogically. Pedagogically is start with Bouzidi article, when he started questioning why the Algerian students that struggle to achieve good grades there. So he said that teaching methods are still classical and still old there. So the students there, they need to, the lectures, they need to improve and also develop or bring new things. Students' motivation as well was very important in his article, because he said that the students there in Algeria, they perceive teaching, studying literature is one of the most difficult modules, because they don't have a background and also they are not well studied in order to jump to that level. Gouti and Mohammed as well, also in 2012, they criticize how lecturers deliver their works, because lecturers there, they're still using very classical ways, and also they are still narrow-minded, because they don't accept any opinions, and they don't accept any others in order to imply them or to correct their mistakes. I'm not speaking about the whole lecturers there in Algeria, I'm just speaking about the majority of them. So I have to give credit to some lecturers there that are doing their best in order to improve this module there. So let me now jump to the research problems. Research problems, we have four main problems, which are interrelated to the implementation of the LMD there. So the first one, we have the influence of Algerian Arabic and Islamic culture. whether we don't, whether we like, we belong to the Arab League. So we are a Muslim country, and we are also Arab country. So here the issue here, because if you go back to the history there of Islamic schools, or they call it in Arabic al-Kutab, also some countries they call it al-Masjid. So those schools, they implement the idea that you have to keep listening to your lectures, and also you have to be obeying everything. So this one like has a new similar context to the Chinese one, which we can see it in convention heritage culture, where students are meant just to listen, to obey, and also not to invent. However, in some schools, there are any Quranic schools, students that have to speak and have to tell their opinions and everything. But contextualizing this one to the Chinese one, which is seen now to the education there in Algeria, yes, still it looks like the Chinese one, which is convention heritage. Their students are just meant just to listen. No one has the right to raise a question or also to argue. So now, because we are implementing an LMD system there in Algeria since 2005, and also we know some revolution there in Algeria uprising against the system, because we don't belong to Europe. So many scholars like Miliani, Mahtoubi, and also one of the best scholars in Algeria, they believe that this system doesn't belong to us. So this one, they said that this system brings the idea that learner-centered education there. However, there is a little implementation there in Algeria. So here, this is the problem. We have LMD system, and we should bring like, innovative methods, innovative approach, and also we give the students 70% in the classroom to speak, more than the lectures. However, we are still see contradiction to the curriculum policy. Yes, you have to use the critical thinking approach sometimes, but we don't see any actual existence there in the classroom. Also, the next one is going to the pillar of that's innovative. This one has a relation to the teacher training. Because teachers there, they don't have a good training there in Algeria. It's due to some circumstances, due to some other factors. So this one has a relation with this one. The last one has a relation to my rationale, because yes, there is absence of effective teaching methods, which make the students always absent-minded. So they don't want to come, they don't want to participate in the classes because due to other aspects there in the classroom. So this is the research problem, and from this we thought that, okay, we want to make the students more motivated to come and also to study. So what we did, we bring two approaches, the critical and the communicative language teaching approach, and we combine them together in one classroom in order to let the students speak more and also to explore how the students can develop a better understanding of the literary text through analyzing ideas, and also to examine carefully the interaction among the students themselves, and also to identify the influences. And the final one, to explore how lectures themselves, they respond to the use of those innovative methods, which I'm going to explain later. The research question was the main one, because the contribution of the study lies in bringing to those approach and also combine them in one classroom. So how does the combining of the critical thinking and the communicative language teaching approach contribute to improving the communicative competence in English language and literature classes? So in Algeria, there, if you want to teach literature, so you have to teach English, because it's not our first language there. So this is what we are aiming there, is just like improving the communicative competence and also literary skills there, and to increase the literary appreciation to the students as well. So in my lecture, those areas are covered. So the first one is the communicative language teaching approach, which I'm going to cover the main one, which is the communicative competence by Halliday, Delheims, and also Widows, in order to emerge in this approach. Moving to the second one, because I'm using the critical thinking approach, so I have to speak about the critical thinking approach, which I'm lucky I'm using. I am a member of the critical thinking community there, just because I was always like receiving articles about the recent studies about the critical thinking approach. So I will start my study with my lecture here with Della, with William Helms, with his Lender Break and Fox Way. So I will be then moving to the universities in Algeria and EFL, as I have already explained some of them, and then I will be moving to the novels in higher education there in Algeria. However, I couldn't find any sources talking about the novels there in Algeria, how are they selected, and also how they are seen as novels. But I was luckily, when I was collecting my data, I had some interviews with the lecturers in Algeria, and I asked the criteria how they select the novels. Because I'm using the discussion in my classes, so it's necessary to talk about the socioculture theory of Vygotsky, and also, yes, I'm going to talk about Vygotsky. So also I will be moving about studies in teaching literature, approaches, and methods. So in this study, in this one, I have to look to the combined studies. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any combined studies because this study is very original, so there is no one before has done or has combined two approaches, the critical and the communicative approach in one classroom. So then I will be to the conceptual framework, because I'm using EFL in discussion in my class in EFL. So it is really important to look at Takeshi Kasimo's work and also Emmanuel Menel work, because also I'm using reading to political novels. It is important, therefore, to look at the Kaylee Wilbur works, teaching global literature through translation work. And also because I'm using Arabic novel, I have to look at the work of Jessica Henshaw-Henneman, reading to the Arabic novels such as Najib Mahfoud and also Ala al-Aswani. So this is the areas that I'm going to cover in my conceptual framework. So in my research methodology, I'm using research onion method, which is developed by Sanders in 2007. So I'm using interprecitism approach because I'm focusing on students' interaction in classroom, and also students' answer and response, and this involving like people's interpretation. And also I'm using qualitative approaches because I'm seeking people's opinion and thoughts about the study. The research instrument, as you can see, surveys and pre and post, also classroom observation and semi-structured interview. Data analysis, I'm going to use the content analysis approach in order to analyze surveys, and thematic analysis coding approach in order to analyze interviews and observation. The participant sample is going to, I'm going to use, I use certified sample in order to recruit my participant, which are master students at the University of Furgler, Algeria. So now let me move to the teaching intervention, because we are using 4 Arab novels. And they do belong to the Arab Spring movement recently, and most of the critics, they call them the sparking of those Arab Spring. So first of all, let me start with the Yacouban building. I know all of our Arab citizens there, they know the Yacouban building, and also they know it as Imarat Yacouban. So this is like one of the controversial novels, where the author brings one of the taboos topics there, and very controversial topics like homosexuality, and also like the feminine issues, and also the regime uprising. So all in this novel. So I cannot summarize in 1 or 2 sentences, because as you can see in the cover, there are many characters, but mainly they are talking about the jihad, and also they are talking about the people, how they converted to be like other parts and everything. So now moving to the second one, which is one of the most controversial novels, which is still censored in our court, but not in Algeria. Khalid Khalifa, Praise of Hatred, also in Arabic they called it Madih al-Karahiyya. So this novel is non-fiction to some critics, because it narrates or documented one of the bloody massacre in the modern history in Syria, where more than 200,000 people were killed and 100,000 people were missed in Aleppo. It's like what's happening now with his father, Hafid al-Assad. So this one is narrate what's happening there. It talks about a girl who is blinded just to see her just like views, because her family belongs to Muslim Brotherhood, so they want to uprising against the regime. And also it shows that how the feminine there in our world, they are perceived just to have another look. So this one like has similar relation to the Algerian history and modern history. So now moving to the third one is Yasmin Al-Khalili, The Science of Baghdad. As we know to the Arab world that since Iraq was invaded by American troops or the American army or British army, everything changed in Arab world and also brought many things to the surface, like the conflict between Sunni and Shia, and also the conflict between Arab themselves. So this novel, it talks about one guy who was living in peace in his village, where the American troops came to his village and humiliated everyone, including his mother and his sister, and raped all the girls there. So he started thinking whether, okay, how can I take my revenge? So the story will be ending in the Beirut, in airport of Beirut. He was going to bombard himself London. So this one, he talks about jihadists and how people perceive the extremists. And also Ismail Kadra, he's Algerian, but he wrote this novel in French. So he talks about the Algerian point of view, how people they can change after the Black Decade. And also he sees that extremism doesn't belong to the Islam and doesn't belong to any religion. It's just like something internal, inner inside of us, which is characterized as like as taking revenge from anyone. So moving to the final novel, which is very interesting novel and one of the best novels in our court, which won many prizes, and also one of the binary novels of science fiction in our court. So all of us, we belong to the Arab world, some of us here from Saudi Arabia, Algeria, and also other countries. So we all like dependent on the oil product. So we are also questioning, if you don't have oil, how life is going to be for the Arab world, and how we can do there, and how we can live there. So this novel, it talks about Egypt in 2023. In the future, it takes you this novel where Egypt is divided into two layers. The first layer is Ethiopia, where rich people live there and guarded by the military corps, the military armies, the marines there. So the guardian there are the marines. And the layer one is for the poor people. Those poor people are killing themselves in order to live. It's like somehow like Zambian novels or Zambian ones, and also it seems more or less like it seems more or less like horror movies and also like Gothic one. So this is one of the best novels because it's brought something really new to the Arab world. And also it talks about the youth people there in the Arab world, how the boredom and also how they can perceive themselves, like what's our rule in this life. Also questioning many things. It takes you to the philosophical thing, and also it helps you like to see many things like far away from as we be. So those are the novels, and as I said in the beginning, they have strong relation to the Arab Spring, especially the last one they call this, the spark of Arab Spring, because this one has, as you can see, it's not Ethiopian particularly, but those three novels, four novels, sorry, they could like successfully criticize the regimes there in Arab world. So even this one, it criticizing like Hosni Mubarak regime there. And also it talks about the military corps there in Egypt. So what's the relation between military corps there in Egypt and also military corps there in Arab world, and who is ruling like who is ruling the Arab world there? Are they the military or also are they the government? So he's ruling there. So and also those novels, because they are very chosen in careful way, because those novels reflect our history there in Algeria, and every novel talks about something happened there in Algeria. As we can see, the first one. This one, it happened like before happening the Black Decade that we know as 5th October there in Algeria, the manifestation of the 5th October there in Algeria in 1988. So this one, it really like contextualizing what happened. And this one, it talks about the Black Decade there, when we don't know anything about what's happened there. People are killing each other. Some of them, they are called jihadists, some of them, they call them army, so we don't know anything. And the science of Baghdad, it talks about what's post this Black Decade there in Algeria. So how people now, okay, you lost your family, you lost your beloved one, so how do you think now? How you can see? Are you going to take your revenge or how? And the last one, because Algeria is one also for leading countries that is producing the oil, so we are seeing now in Algeria, we are thinking whether, if you don't have oil, how life is going to be. So those are the novels. And let me now move to the teaching intervention methods. I used 4 ones, but the last one, it has been added in the pilot study. So first of all, the use of the title of the book, the cover and design of the book. So if you come back to those novels, the students are given those those covers. So they start thinking, they start questioning, what's this cover like, and why those people, and why this door, why that man sitting there, why that arm, why this is red. So they start questioning things before approaching the novel. And this one is really helpful for them. Moving to the second one, which is about like using themes. Using themes, we have to give the students like different themes. If you go back to the Yakuban building, for example, we have to give them the bureaucracy, the injustice, and also we have to give them like the feminine issue that are occurred. So they start combining the novel itself. So they start thinking about how is going to be this event of the novel. The third one, which is characterized by all the participants as the best one. This is still in time capsule. All the participants, they show that they were impressed about using this one. This one, it showed like any one of the participants, they should read 2 pages of the novel, and then he had to close the novel and start thinking how the novel is going to be until the end. So he has to predict everything, the character, the events, everything. So, and then he has to hide this piece of paper anywhere. And then when he hides it after like the session or after reading the novel, he has to come back to it, but it's not to his one, but to other one. So they start reading which one was very closer to the main event of the novel. Moving to the last, before the last one, guidance is comprehension, because there it is like study, so we have to give them like something which is somehow belong to the classical way, like okay, given questions and then give them the next session they have to bring the answer. And this one is really good. The questions are very critical one, so they need them to think very critically, and also they need very carefully about the answers and everything. So we were giving them like almost 10 questions, and we see whether the motivation of these classes are there still in flowing them at their homes or no. And we were very surprised that all the participants, they could answer them, like even not the 10 of them, but at least 5 or 6, because some of them they got like difficulties and anything like that. Skype interview, this is a really innovative one, because this was added in the pilot study. When I thought about something, when I watched the movie, have you seen the Freedom Writers there? The movie of the Freedom Writers. This movie, like, it talks about one teacher who tried her best, like, to change her way of teaching, because she was teaching in school where neglected people from other ethnicities, like Mexican, like African, like, so she wants them to really be good. So what she did, she could bring like Anna Frank, if you have read her diaries, from Amsterdam, and they could interact with her because just they have read her book. So this one, I could manage it, I could do it there, but in a very modern way. Because I was about to conduct my study about those 4 novels, about literature, the concept of the hero. So I have already like contact with the 4 novels, with 4 authors, because they're still alive. None of them is dead. So what we did, just like, okay, we want him interact with the students directly. So this one is really interesting. So how they can interact, and the students, they want to feel that this is literature. This is not like something, yes, just you have to improve your language proficiency and everything else. This is, you have to show that you can express your feeling. However, this couldn't be performed because due to the author time plans, but there is always plan B. We could like bring the head department of Arabic department there in Wergela, because he is already interested in political novels. So they could interact with this one. But however, we want this one to happen, but maybe in the future, maybe other studies they can do it. But this one, what does mean? It does mean that the students, they turn it to be reader themselves, and also they have to interact with the authors, because they raise many questions, many unanswered the questions, and also why they wondering about everything. So moving now to the pilot study, which is conducted here with international PhD students, and also the main change that we were, I replaced one novel. The novel was replaced because by Hisham Matar. Hisham Matar is Libyan, and he wrote about the Gaddafi regimes there. In Algeria, you don't have like progressive regimes there. Yes, so and also like they cannot talk about it because the Gaddafi and also the regime there is like vanished. Like since 2011, it's rare when people they can talk about the Gaddafi and everything. So we thought like, okay, if we can change one novel and we bring Yasmina Kadra novel. So we brought Yasmina Kadra novel and also we put it like as a novel as a revenge. So we need students to talk. And also we expand the length of discussion from 60 to 80 minutes to 90 minutes. And also we expand the length of semi-structured interview and modifying some questions in order to be suitable with the research aims. So as you can see here, data from